The Vampire King came to her ex's wedding for one reason. Her. The ballroom of the Ashford Grand Hotel glittered like a jewelry box dipped in gold. Crystal chandeliers reflected against polished marble floors. String music floated through the air. Champagne glasses clinked softly beneath warm candlelight. And Olivia Carter stood near the back of the room pretending she could still breathe. "You okay?" her friend Jenna whispered beside her. Olivia forced a smile that hurt her cheeks. "Yeah, it was a lie. Everything about tonight felt wrong. The flowers smelled too sweet. The lights were too bright. Even the expensive silver heels pinched her feet hard enough to make her want to limp back to the subway station and disappear into Manhattan forever." At the center of the ballroom, Ethan Brooks laughed as guests circled around him. Perfect suit. Perfect smile. Perfect new fiancé hanging from his arm like a designer accessory. 3 years together. 3 years of late-night ramen dinners, unpaid bills, tiny apartments, and promises whispered at 2 in the morning. Then Ethan got promoted at his law firm. Then came the richer friends. The rooftop parties. The expensive watches. The woman in the white dress now touching his arm, while Olivia stood alone beside a fake marble column, trying not to cry. Her phone buzzed softly in her clutch purse. Another notification. Ethan had tagged everyone at the wedding on social media. Everyone except her. Olivia swallowed hard. She should leave. She knew she should. But humiliation had a strange way of gluing people in place. "There she is," a voice suddenly called across the ballroom. Ethan spotted her. Of course he did. His smile sharpened slightly as he walked closer with his fiancée beside him. "Liv." He looked her up and down carefully. "Wow, you actually came." His fiancée smiled politely, but Olivia could see it in her eyes. Curiosity. Judgment. Victory. "Wouldn't miss it," Olivia said quietly. Ethan chuckled. "Still working at that catering company?" There it was. The knife hidden beneath the grin. Olivia felt heat rise into her face. "Yeah, that's great," he said in the same tone people used when talking to children. "Really proud of you for hanging in there." Jenna stiffened beside her. Olivia kept smiling anyway. She had learned long ago that some people enjoyed watching pain too much to ever deserve honesty. Ethan glanced around the ballroom dramatically. "So where's your date?" Silence. Small. Sharp. Cruel. Olivia opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Ethan's fiancée tilted her head slightly. "Oh my God," she laughed softly. "Did you come alone?" The embarrassment hit harder than Olivia expected, like cold water straight to the lungs. Around them, conversations blurred together into distant noise. She suddenly became aware of every cheap stitch in her black dress, every overdue bill sitting on her kitchen counter. Every night, she cried herself to sleep after Ethan left her for someone wealthier. Then the temperature in the ballroom changed. Not dramatically, just enough. A strange coolness slipped through the air like winter moving beneath a locked door. Guests near the entrance slowly turned. Conversations died one by one. The violinist stopped playing mid-note. Olivia frowned slightly and looked toward the massive ballroom doors just as they opened. A man stepped inside wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. Tall, pale, inhumanly calm. The soft golden lights reflected against sharp cheekbones and dark hair that looked almost blue beneath the chandeliers. But it was his eyes that made Olivia freeze. Silver, cold silver, like moonlight over deep water. He moved through the ballroom slowly while guests instinctively stepped aside without understanding why. Even the hotel staff lowered their eyes as he passed. Ethan stopped talking immediately. His confident expression flickered for half a second. Fear. Real fear. The stranger's gaze locked onto Olivia from across the ballroom. Not Ethan. Not the bride. Her. And then, to Olivia's complete confusion, the man walked directly toward her like he had been searching for her all night. The stranger stopped directly in front of Olivia, close enough now that she could see details no human face should possess. His skin was not simply pale. It looked carved from cold marble beneath the ballroom lights. Every movement carried unnatural precision, smooth and silent like water sliding over glass. The room watched him without breathing. Olivia suddenly became aware that Ethan had stepped backward. Just one step, but enough. The stranger's silver eyes never left her face. "You left without your coat," he said calmly. Olivia blinked in confusion. What? A black wool coat rested over his arm. Her coat. The one she had accidentally left at the hotel lounge bar downtown 3 nights ago. after working a late shift. The same night, she sat alone drinking cheap coffee while trying not to cry over Ethan's engagement photos online. Recognition hit her slowly. The quiet man in the corner booth. The stranger who listened while she vented to someone she thought she would never see again. "You," she whispered. A faint expression touched his face. Not quite a smile. "You asked me to come." Around them, guests exchanged nervous glances. Jenna's eyes widened beside Olivia. "Liv?" she whispered urgently. "Who is that?" Olivia had no idea. That was the terrifying part. Because standing this close to him felt like standing beside a thunderstorm pretending to wear a human face. Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly, trying to reclaim control of the moment. "Hey, man," he said with forced confidence. "Private wedding." The stranger finally looked at him. The temperature seemed to drop another 5 degrees. Ethan's voice died immediately. Silence crashed across the ballroom. The stranger spoke softly. "I was invited." Then his attention returned to Olivia completely, as though no one else existed. "You seemed upset the last time we spoke." Olivia's pulse hammered. 3 nights ago, she had barely looked at him while rambling into her coffee cup about Ethan, humiliation, and regret. She remembered laughing bitterly before saying, "Maybe I should bring a mysterious rich guy to the wedding just to ruin his night." She had not expected the man to answer. Especially not like this. "You actually came," she said quietly. "I said yes." The calm certainty in his voice unsettled her more than anger would have. Behind them, one of the hotel managers suddenly rushed forward looking pale. "Sir," the manager said nervously, "we did not realize you would be attending tonight." The stranger did not even glance at him. Clearly, the manager immediately lowered his eyes. Olivia stared. The Ashford Grand manager once screamed at a bartender for serving sparkling water in the wrong glass. Now the man looked ready to faint. Ethan forced out a weak laugh. "Look, Olivia, if this is some kind of joke, you should stop talking now," Jenna whispered sharply to him. Ethan ignored her. "Seriously, showing up with some billionaire wannabe does not suddenly make you important." A few guests chuckled nervously. Olivia felt humiliation crawl back into her chest. Familiar. Heavy. Then the stranger stepped closer beside her. Not touching. Just near enough that she could feel cold radiating from him, like winter air before snowfall. "Interesting," he said softly. "You abandoned the only woman in this room worth admiring." The laughter vanished instantly. Ethan's face darkened. "Excuse me." The stranger tilted his head slightly. "You heard me." No raised voice. No threat. Somehow that made it worse. Every instinct in the ballroom seemed to recoil from him. Olivia noticed something else then. Several wealthy guests near the front had quietly lowered their heads. One older man looked genuinely terrified. A woman in diamonds gripped her champagne glass hard enough to shake. They knew him. Somehow they knew him. Olivia's stomach tightened. "Who are you?" she asked carefully. For the first time, something unreadable flickered across the stranger's face. Ancient. Dangerous. Sad. Then he reached into his coat pocket and removed a small black velvet box. The entire ballroom froze as he opened it. Inside rested a ring unlike anything Olivia had ever seen. Dark silver. Intricate carvings twisting around a deep crimson stone that seemed to glow beneath the chandelier light. Gasps spread quietly through the crowd. One guest nearly dropped his drink. The stranger lifted the ring slowly. "Olivia Carter," he said softly. "May I have your hand?" Olivia stared at the ring as if it might explode in his hand. The crimson stone caught the chandelier light strangely, glowing from somewhere deep inside instead of reflecting. Her throat tightened. "I think you have the wrong idea," she whispered quickly. "This is not real. We barely know each other." The stranger's silver eyes held hers steadily. That has never stopped destiny before. A nervous laugh escaped someone nearby before immediately dying. No one else seemed comfortable enough to speak. The ballroom had become unnaturally still. Even the servers stopped moving. Olivia became painfully aware that every guest was staring directly at her. Ethan folded his arms tightly. "Okay, enough with the drama." His voice sounded thinner now, less certain. "Who even are you supposed to be?" The stranger finally looked away from Olivia. Slowly, deliberately. His gaze settled on Ethan with quiet exhaustion, like a king being forced to acknowledge an insect buzzing too close to his throne. "Lucian Vale," he said calmly. The reaction was instant. A champagne glass shattered somewhere near the back of the ballroom. One elderly guest went visibly pale. Another man stumbled backward into a chair hard enough to nearly fall. Olivia frowned in confusion. The name clearly meant something to everyone except her. Ethan forced out another laugh, but sweat now glistened along his forehead. Right? Sure. Jenna suddenly grabbed Olivia's arm hard enough to hurt. Liv, she whispered shakily. I know that name. Olivia looked at her. What? Jenna swallowed hard. Vale Industries. Vale Foundation. Half the buildings downtown have his name on them. Olivia blinked. Impossible. She looked back at Lucien. 3 nights ago, he sat alone drinking black coffee in a quiet hotel lounge while rain hammered against the windows. He wore no watch, no visible security, no expensive arrogance, just silence and tired eyes. You are that Lucien Vale? She asked softly. Among other things. Before Olivia could process the answer, movement erupted near the ballroom entrance. 4 men in dark suits entered quickly, tall, severe. Every one of them moved with military precision. The guests nearest to them immediately stepped aside. One of the men approached Lucien carefully and lowered his head. Not a nod, a bow. My lord, he said quietly. Olivia felt the air leave her lungs. My lord. Lucien did not take his eyes off her. You are late, Victor. There were complications securing the perimeter. The man's eyes flicked briefly toward the guests. Alert. Dangerous. Olivia suddenly noticed something unnatural about all 4 men. Too graceful. Too still. Their pale skin almost matched Lucien's beneath the ballroom lights. A cold ripple moved down her spine. Ethan stepped backward again. What the hell is this? No one answered him. Lucien extended the ring toward Olivia once more. Your hand. The room seemed to lean forward, waiting for her answer. Olivia's pulse thundered so loudly she could barely think. This was insane. Completely insane. Yet something inside her whispered that refusing him would somehow change her life just as much as accepting. Olivia, Jenna hissed under her breath. I think you should do whatever he says. That is not helping, Olivia muttered weakly. Lucien's expression softened slightly. It transformed his face in a way that almost made him look human. Almost. You do not need to be afraid of me, he said quietly. Several guests visibly reacted to that sentence alone. Fear flashed across faces all around the ballroom, as if everyone present understood something Olivia did not. Then Ethan laughed sharply, bitter this time. Seriously, he snapped. You are falling for this. He looked directly at Olivia. This is pathetic, even for you. The words hit harder than she expected. Old wounds reopening instantly. Olivia looked down at the floor for one terrible second. Long enough for shame to return. Long enough to remember every cruel thing Ethan ever said about her dreams, her jobs, her apartment, her life. Then Lucien moved. Not fast. Not violently. Just one smooth step forward until he stood beside her shoulder. Protective. Absolute. The chandeliers overhead flickered softly. Several guests lowered their eyes immediately. Lucien's voice dropped almost to a whisper. If you speak to her that way again, he said calmly, this evening will become extremely unpleasant for you. Ethan froze completely. Olivia felt it then. Not fear exactly. Power. Ancient and enormous beneath Lucien's calm exterior like something sleeping beneath ice. The ballroom doors suddenly opened again. This time, every single person in the room turned instantly. An older woman entered wearing a dark crimson gown and silver jewelry shaped like twisting roses. Her white hair gleamed beneath the chandeliers. The moment her eyes landed on Lucien, she stopped walking entirely. Horror spread across her face. Then, slowly, she lowered herself to one knee in the center of the ballroom. Your Majesty, she whispered, and the entire wedding fell into chaos. The ballroom erupted into whispers so fast it sounded like a storm moving through dry leaves. Guests backed away from Lucien instinctively, chairs scraping against marble floors as panic spread from table to table. Olivia stood frozen beside him, her heartbeat hammering painfully against her ribs. Your Majesty. The words echoed through her mind over and over. Impossible. Completely impossible. The older woman remained kneeling with her head lowered. Several other guests immediately followed her lead. One by one. Quietly. Fearfully. Olivia stared as a man she recognized from television, a billionaire investor worth hundreds of millions, bowed his head toward Lucien without hesitation. Ethan looked seconds away from collapsing. No, he muttered under his breath. No. That is not possible. Lucien exhaled softly, almost tired. Lady Beatrice, he said calmly to the kneeling woman. Stand. She obeyed instantly. Her eyes briefly flicked toward Olivia with open disbelief before lowering again. We did not know you would attend tonight, Your Majesty. Clearly, Lucien repeated. The temperature in the room still felt unnaturally cold around him. Olivia finally found her voice. Barely. What does she mean? Lucien turned toward her slowly. For the first time since entering the ballroom, something uncertain crossed his face. Not fear. Something older. More dangerous. Regret perhaps. There are things about me you do not yet understand. Ethan suddenly stepped forward. This is insane. His voice cracked loudly. You expect us to believe this guy is some kind of king? No one laughed this time. Not one person. In fact, several guests looked horrified. Ethan was still speaking. Lucien did not even glance at him. You should leave, Victor said quietly to Ethan. The warning in his tone chilled the air. Ethan forced himself to straighten his shoulders. No, I want answers. Lucien finally looked at him. Silver eyes. Ancient eyes. Ethan immediately lost what little confidence remained in his expression. Very well, Lucien said softly. Then he reached for Olivia's hand. The moment his fingers brushed her skin, the ballroom lights flickered violently overhead. Gasps spread through the crowd. Olivia felt sudden warmth spiral beneath her wrist, like sunlight moving under her skin. She flinched sharply. What was that? Lucien's gaze dropped instantly to her hand. For the first time since she met him, his composure cracked. Just slightly. A thin golden mark shimmered beneath Olivia's pale skin before fading almost immediately. Silence crashed across the ballroom. Lady Beatrice looked horrified. Impossible, she whispered. Victor stiffened beside Lucien. My lord, Lucien's jaw tightened. Not here. Olivia pulled her hand back instinctively. What is happening to me? Nobody answered immediately. That frightened her more than anything. Ethan's bride suddenly grabbed his arm hard. Ethan, she whispered urgently. I think we should go. Ethan yanked his arm away. Embarrassment and anger twisted across his face. No, he pointed directly at Olivia. This is ridiculous. She is a waitress from Brooklyn, not some queen. The sentence barely left his mouth before every chandelier in the ballroom dimmed at once. The shadows deepened unnaturally across the marble walls. Guests gasped and stepped backward. Lucien stood perfectly still beside Olivia, while cold power radiated through the room like invisible pressure. Ethan went pale instantly. Lucien's voice remained calm. That somehow made it terrifying. You continue to mistake kindness for weakness. The ballroom trembled softly. Wine glasses rattled against tables. Olivia stared at Lucien in shock. None of this felt human anymore. Not the cold. Not the lights. Not the fear spreading through every person around them. Then Lucien looked down at her again, and suddenly all that terrifying power softened around the edges, like winter sunlight touching ice. Olivia, he said quietly, I need you to trust me for the next few minutes. Her pulse raced. Trust you with what? Before he could answer, one of the ballroom doors burst open. Another group entered. 6 men and women dressed entirely in black. Elegant. Pale. Beautiful in a way that immediately felt wrong. Dangerous. The crowd parted instantly for them. Olivia noticed something horrifying then. Unlike the terrified wedding guests, these newcomers were not afraid of Lucien. One woman with silver blonde hair stepped forward slowly, her crimson lips curving into a cold smile. Well, she said softly, this explains why the king disappeared from court. Her eyes settled directly on Olivia. You brought home a human. Lucien moved slightly in front of Olivia before anyone else could react. Protective. Absolute. The blonde woman's smile faded immediately. Careful, Lucien, she warned softly. The council will not tolerate this. Olivia looked between them helplessly. Council. Lucien never took his eyes off the woman. You were not invited here, Seraphine. The woman called Seraphine tilted her head slowly. Neither was she. Then her crimson gaze locked onto Olivia's wrist where the faint golden mark had appeared moments earlier. And for the first time, Seraphine looked afraid. The ballroom no longer felt like a wedding. It felt like the moment before a thunderstorm tears opened the sky. Olivia stood motionless beside Lucien while dozens of frightened guests quietly moved toward the exits. Nobody wanted to be trapped in the same room as whatever this had become. Seraphine's crimson eyes remained fixed on Olivia's wrist. Show me her hand, she said softly. Lucien did not move. No, the single word sliced through the ballroom like ice across glass. Seraphine smiled faintly. You already know what I saw. Lucien's expression darkened. Around them, the six pale strangers behind Seraphine spread out silently through the room. Elegant predators pretending to be people. Olivia felt panic rising in her chest again. Can someone please explain what is happening? Her voice sounded small, compared to the terrifying stillness surrounding them. Seraphine finally looked directly at her. You truly do not know. Know what? The woman stepped closer. Her silver gown shimmered beneath the chandeliers like liquid moonlight. Beautiful. Terrifying. Humans are not supposed to survive the king's mark. Olivia felt cold spread through her stomach. What mark? Lucien answered before Seraphine could. Enough. The chandeliers flickered again. Victor and the other dark-suited guards immediately stiffened around the ballroom perimeter. Olivia realized then that everyone was preparing for something terrible to happen. Ethan suddenly grabbed his bride's arm and rushed toward the exit. We are leaving. Nobody stopped him. But as Ethan passed Olivia, shame and anger twisted across his face one final time. You always needed attention, he muttered bitterly. Looks like you finally found someone insane enough to give it to you. Olivia flinched slightly. Old pain. Familiar pain. Then Lucien spoke, without even turning toward Ethan. The next words out of your mouth determine whether you walk out of this building peacefully. Silence. Absolute silence. Ethan froze instantly. Every color drained from his face. Olivia felt the pressure in the room deepen again, invisible but enormous, like standing beneath deep ocean water. Ethan looked at Lucien once. Just once. Then he grabbed his bride tighter and practically stumbled toward the doors. Nobody watched him leave. Nobody cared anymore. All eyes remained on Olivia. Seraphine tilted her head slowly. Interesting. Her voice softened dangerously. You protect her publicly already. Lucien's silver gaze hardened. She is under my protection. Gasps rippled through the remaining guests. One older woman crossed herself under her breath. Seraphine looked genuinely stunned for the first time. You cannot mean that. I rarely speak without meaning. Olivia looked between them helplessly. Lucien. He turned toward her immediately, and once again the terrifying coldness around him eased slightly. I know this is overwhelming. Overwhelming. Olivia laughed nervously. You think? She held up her wrist. Something glowed. Under my skin 5 minutes ago, and now people are bowing to you, calling you king. Lucien stared at her hand carefully. Too carefully. You are not in danger while I am here. Seraphine laughed softly at that. That is exactly what makes her dangerous. Victor stepped forward immediately. Enough. But Seraphine ignored him completely. Her crimson gaze locked onto Olivia again. Do you know why vampires fear human women? Olivia shook her head slowly. Because once every few centuries, Seraphine whispered, one is born capable of binding the throne itself. The ballroom went dead quiet. Even Lucien did not interrupt her this time. Olivia's pulse stumbled painfully. I do not understand. Of course you do not. Seraphine smiled coldly. You are a waitress from Brooklyn standing in the center of a supernatural succession crisis. Olivia stared at her blankly. Succession crisis. The words sounded insane. Lucien suddenly stepped between them again. You are finished speaking, Seraphine. Am I? She asked softly. Then she looked directly at Olivia one final time. Ask him why the mark appeared tonight. Lucien's jaw tightened instantly. Seraphine saw it and smiled wider. So she really does not know. Olivia's breathing quickened. Lucien. He remained silent. That frightened her more than anything else tonight. Tell me. The ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Lucien looked down at her with something dangerously close to sorrow in his silver eyes. Because, he said quietly, the mark only appears when the throne recognizes a future queen. The room exploded into terrified whispers. Olivia felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Future queen. No. Impossible. Completely impossible. Then sudden pain burned across her wrist. Olivia gasped sharply as golden light flashed beneath her skin again, brighter this time. The guests recoiled in horror. Seraphine's smile vanished instantly, and Lucien looked afraid for the very first time. Golden light spread beneath Olivia's skin like cracks forming through ice. The mark curled around her wrist in delicate patterns, ancient symbols glowing softly beneath the ballroom chandeliers. Guests stumbled backward in fear. One woman, near the dessert table, burst into tears. Another whispered a prayer under her breath. Olivia could barely breathe. The heat beneath her skin was growing stronger. Not painful exactly, just overwhelming. Alive. Lucien, she whispered shakily. Make it stop. He moved instantly. One cold hand closed gently around her wrist. The moment he touched the glowing mark, the light dimmed slightly. Relief washed through Olivia, so suddenly her knees almost gave out. Lucien steadied her before she could fall. Look at me, he said softly. She did. His silver eyes no longer looked cold. They looked worried. Truly worried. You are safe. Seraphine laughed bitterly. Safe. She stepped closer despite Victor moving to block her path. Do you have any idea what happens if the council discovers the throne chose a human? Lucien's expression hardened immediately. They already know. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Seraphine looked around the ballroom slowly at the terrified faces watching them. Then tonight changes everything. Olivia looked between them desperately. Can someone please explain what the throne has to do with me? Lucien hesitated. That alone terrified her. He looked like a man deciding whether honesty would destroy the world faster than lies. Finally, he spoke quietly. The vampire throne is not inherited the way human kingdoms work. Olivia frowned through the panic rising in her chest. Then how does it work? The throne chooses. A chill swept down Olivia's spine. That is not possible. Most things tonight should not be possible, Seraphine said coldly. Lucien ignored her completely. His attention remained fixed only on Olivia. Every ruler in our history has been bound by the ancient crown through a blood recognition ritual. Olivia stared at him blankly. Blood recognition? A living bond between the throne and the person capable of standing beside the king. The words landed slowly. Too slowly. You mean a queen? Lucien did not answer immediately. That silence became the answer instead. Olivia shook her head hard. No, absolutely not. I serve mini crab cakes at charity events for rich people. I split rent with 2 roommates. I have $37 in my checking account. A faint smile almost touched Lucien's face despite the tension surrounding them. The throne appears unconcerned about your finances. Several terrified guests actually laughed nervously at that before immediately stopping themselves. Olivia pressed a hand against her forehead. This cannot be real. Unfortunately, Seraphine murmured, it is very real. The blonde vampire woman looked genuinely disturbed now. Not angry. Afraid. That frightened Olivia more than anything else tonight. Why are you scared of me? Olivia asked quietly. Seraphine's crimson eyes locked onto hers. Because humans are fragile. The ballroom fell silent again. But occasionally, Seraphine continued softly, one appears capable of changing vampire history forever. Lucien stepped slightly closer to Olivia. Protective again. Constantly protective. Enough. You know I am right. Seraphine's voice sharpened for the first time. If the elders hear about this, they will never allow her near the throne. Victor suddenly stiffened near the entrance. My lord. Lucien turned instantly. Every vampire in the room reacted at once. Tension exploded through the ballroom like an invisible wave. Olivia followed their gaze toward the massive glass windows overlooking Manhattan. Black vehicles were pulling up outside the hotel entrance. Too many. Too fast. Who are they? Olivia whispered. Lucien's jaw tightened dangerously. The council. Panic spread through the remaining wedding guests. Several people rushed toward side exits. Others backed away from Olivia, as if simply standing near her had become dangerous. Seraphine cursed softly under her breath. How did they arrive this quickly? Victor answered grimly. Someone informed them. Every eye in the ballroom slowly turned toward Ethan. He stood frozen near the exit beside his horrified bride. I did not know they were real. Ethan stammered immediately. I just called security. Lucien looked at him once. Just once. The chandeliers dimmed sharply overhead. Ethan nearly collapsed against the wall. Please, he whispered. I did not mean. Lucien ignored him completely. His attention snapped toward Olivia instead. Urgent now. Listen carefully. She nodded automatically, heart racing. When they enter this room, do not speak unless I tell you to. Lucien, trust me. The ballroom doors exploded open before she could answer. 10 figures entered wearing long black coats lined with dark silver. Ancient symbols gleamed across their collars. The temperature dropped instantly. Every vampire in the room lowered their heads. Even Seraphine stepped backward. An older man with white hair walked slowly into the center of the ballroom. His eyes glowed faint gold beneath the chandelier light. He looked directly at Olivia's glowing wrist. Then he looked at Lucien. "Your Majesty," he said coldly. "Step away from the human." The moment the council entered, the entire ballroom seemed to shrink around them. Cold power rolled through the air like invisible smoke. Olivia suddenly understood why everyone looked terrified. These were not wealthy elites pretending to be dangerous. These people carried something ancient inside them. Something older than cities. Older than nations. The white-haired man stopped several feet away from Lucien. His dark coat brushed softly against the marble floor. Gold eyes fixed on Olivia's glowing wrist without blinking. "Your Majesty," he repeated calmly. "Step away from the human." Lucien did not move an inch. No, the single word cracked through the ballroom instantly. Several council members exchanged uneasy looks. Olivia felt her pulse racing harder beneath the fading golden mark on her skin. She wanted to run, cry, wake up. Any of those options sounded reasonable right now. The white-haired man's expression darkened slightly. "You understand the consequences of this." "Better than you," Lucien answered coldly. Seraphine quietly stepped backward farther toward the windows. Even she looked nervous now. Victor moved beside Lucien immediately while the other guards subtly formed a barrier around Olivia. The white-haired council leader noticed. "You deploy royal guard formations around a human woman," he said carefully. "That alone will fracture the houses." Lucien's silver eyes flashed faintly beneath the chandelier light. "Then perhaps the houses should. Remember who built the throne they hide behind." Silence. Heavy and sharp. Olivia looked between them helplessly. "Can somebody please stop talking like I am not standing right here?" The white-haired man finally acknowledged her directly. "Miss Carter." His voice remained calm. Too calm. "Do you understand what has attached itself to you tonight?" "No," Olivia answered honestly. Nobody is explaining anything clearly. To her surprise, something almost sympathetic flickered across the man's face. "That is because none of this should have happened." Lucien's expression hardened instantly. "Enough, Cassian." So that was his name. Cassian inclined his head slightly toward the king, but did not back down. "The throne has remained dormant for nearly a century. No mark has appeared since Queen Eleanor died." Olivia felt Lucien go still beside her. Not physically, emotionally. The shift lasted less than a second, but she noticed it anyway. Pain. Ancient pain. Cassian continued carefully. "Then tonight a human woman appears at a random wedding with the royal bond awakening beneath her skin." Olivia blinked. Random wedding? Seraphine laughed softly from across the ballroom. Nothing about tonight was random anymore. Lucien shot her a warning glance sharp enough to freeze steel. Seraphine fell silent immediately. Olivia stared at Lucien. "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, one of the council women suddenly stepped forward. Tall, elegant, severe. "The throne does not choose based on status," she said quietly. "It chooses based on compatibility with the crown itself." Olivia frowned. Compatibility? Strength. Compassion. Loyalty. Emotional resilience. The woman studied Olivia carefully. Traits the ancient blood magic recognizes. Olivia almost laughed from disbelief. "I work double shifts serving cocktails to finance bros who complain about imported ice cubes." "And yet," the woman replied softly, "the throne still chose you." Ethan's voice suddenly broke through the silence near the exits. "This is insane." Everyone turned. He still had not left. His bride looked ready to faint beside him. Ethan pointed directly at Olivia with shaking hands. "She is nobody." The words echoed sharply through the ballroom. Olivia felt the humiliation hit again automatically. Familiar. Cruel. Then something changed. The golden mark beneath her skin suddenly flared brighter than before. Gasps spread across the room. Ethan stumbled backward immediately. Lucien looked down at Olivia's wrist in alarm. "Olivia." The light spread farther this time. Thin golden patterns climbed slowly beneath her skin, like glowing vines curling upward along her arm. Warmth flooded her chest. Strange images flickered through her mind. Stone towers. Snow falling against black castle walls. A silver crown resting beneath moonlight. And eyes. Silver eyes watching her across centuries. Olivia gasped sharply and nearly lost her balance. Lucien caught her instantly. "Look at me," he ordered softly. She tried, but the visions kept flashing faster now. Ancient hallways. Candlelight. A woman laughing somewhere far away. Then a voice whispered directly inside her mind. Welcome home. Olivia's breath caught violently. The ballroom disappeared for half a second. When her vision cleared again, every vampire in the room was staring at her in horror. Cassian looked pale. Truly pale. Seraphine's expression had gone completely blank. And Lucien looked at Olivia with the same expression a man might, while watching fate rewrite itself in front of him. Then the golden light beneath Olivia's skin formed one final symbol near her wrist. A crown. The crown-shaped symbol glowed beneath Olivia's skin like molten gold trapped under glass. Nobody in the ballroom moved. Nobody breathed. Even the city lights outside the towering windows seemed dimmer now, swallowed by the crushing silence hanging over the room. Olivia stared at her wrist in disbelief. That cannot be real. Her voice shook badly. Lucien still held her carefully against him, one hand steady at her waist to keep her standing. His touch remained cold, but strangely calming now compared to the chaos around them. Cassian looked at the glowing mark with open alarm. It completed. Seraphine whispered something ancient under her breath. One of the council members behind Cassian immediately backed away from Olivia though the mark itself frightened him. Olivia looked around helplessly. Why is everyone acting like I am about to explode? Nobody answered. That terrified her more than anything else tonight. Then Lucien finally spoke quietly beside her. Because the bond should have taken months. Cassian's gold eyes narrowed sharply. Years. Olivia looked between them. Bond. Lucien exhaled slowly, like a man surrendering to fate. The throne does not simply recognize a queen. His silver eyes lowered briefly toward the glowing crown beneath her skin. It binds itself to her. Olivia felt cold spread through her stomach. No, Olivia. No, she pulled away from him slightly, panic rising fast now. I did not agree to any of this. The ballroom lights flickered again as emotion flashed across Lucien's face. Not anger. Pain. I know. I came here because my ex invited me to his stupid wedding. Olivia said breathlessly. I was supposed to eat dry chicken, fake smile for 2 hours, then go home and cry in my apartment. Several guests looked uncomfortable hearing that. Olivia barely noticed. I was not supposed to become whatever this is. Lucien watched her quietly for several long seconds. You are still yourself. Seraphine laughed softly. Not for long. Victor immediately stepped toward her. Enough. But Seraphine ignored him completely. Her crimson gaze remained fixed on Olivia. Do you think the vampire houses will allow a human woman to sit beside the throne? Olivia swallowed hard. I do not want a throne. That does not matter anymore. Cassian's voice cut through the room calmly. Everyone turned toward him. The older council leader looked exhausted suddenly. Ancient. The bond has awakened publicly. His eyes moved across the terrified guests still trapped inside the ballroom. Hundreds witnessed it. Lucien's expression darkened immediately. He already understood the danger. Olivia could see it now. What happens next? She whispered. Cassian answered honestly. Panic. Silence followed. Heavy and immediate. Cassian continued carefully. Some houses will believe the throne has finally chosen a queen after nearly a century. His expression hardened. Others will see you as a threat that must disappear before the balance of power changes permanently. Olivia felt her knees weaken again. Lucien steadied her instantly. Nobody touches her. Power surged quietly beneath his voice. Dangerous. Absolute. Several council members visibly stiffened. Cassian studied Lucien carefully. You would risk civil fracture for her. Lucien did not hesitate. Yes. The single word shattered the room. Olivia stared at him in shock. He meant it. Completely. Totally. Seraphine looked horrified now. Lucien, think carefully. I already have. The houses will revolt. Then let them. The temperature dropped sharply across the ballroom. Guests rushed farther away from the center of the room. Olivia looked up at Lucien, stunned by the cold certainty in his voice. Why? She whispered. His silver eyes met hers slowly. For the first time all night, the terrifying immortal king standing beside her looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Because I spent the last century surrounded by power without kindness. The ballroom remained silent. Then, 3 nights ago, Lucien continued softly. A woman who had every reason to become cruel still chose compassion. Olivia blinked slowly. What? A faint sadness crossed his face. You gave your cab fare to a homeless veteran outside the lounge. Olivia froze. You saw that? I saw everything. Flashbacks hit her instantly. The freezing rain. The old man shivering beneath cardboard. Her last $20 disappearing into his hands while she walked home through Manhattan alone afterward. Lucien's voice lowered further. You comforted a waitress crying in the restroom while your own heart was breaking. Olivia's breath caught. You were there too? Yes. The ballroom had gone completely still, listening to him. Even Seraphine looked shaken now. Lucien reached up slowly and brushed his cold fingers gently against Olivia's glowing wrist. The throne did not choose you because you are powerful. His silver eyes softened. It chose you because you remained kind in a world that rewarded cruelty. Olivia's eyes burned suddenly. Nobody had ever looked at her like this before. Like kindness itself mattered. Then every light in the ballroom exploded at once. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. Guests screamed. The city skyline vanished behind blackened windows. And somewhere inside the darkness, a deep ancient voice whispered through the ballroom like thunder rolling beneath the earth. The queen has awakened. Darkness swallowed the ballroom completely. Guests screamed somewhere in the distance. Glass shattered. Chairs scraped violently across marble floors. But Olivia could not move. The ancient voice still echoed through her body like thunder trapped beneath her skin. The queen has awakened. The glowing crown beneath her wrist burned brighter inside the darkness. Warm now. Alive. Then suddenly, cold fingers closed carefully around her hand. Lucien, stay beside me, he said quietly. His voice cut through the panic instantly. Lucien began carefully. Listen to me. No. She stepped backward from him for the first time all night. Fear crashed through her chest, so hard it hurt. I cannot do this. The glowing mark pulsed brighter beneath her skin in response to her panic. Several vampires immediately reacted. Lucien moved toward her instantly. Breathe. I am trying. Her voice cracked. I was worried about rent this morning. Tears finally burned in her eyes. I was worried about subway delays and whether my manager would cut my shifts again. The ballroom remained completely silent listening to her. Now everyone keeps talking about queens and thrones and ancient magic like I am supposed to understand any of it. Lucien stopped directly in front of her again. Ancient grief buried beneath centuries of control. Yes. What happened to her? Lucien looked away toward the dark skyline beyond the glass. They killed her. The words shattered something inside the room. Even the council fell silent. Olivia felt cold spread through her entire body. Lucien looked back at her slowly. Which means the moment the throne chose you tonight, the helicopters outside stopped moving, hovering now directly beside the ballroom windows. Red lights flashing through the rain. Lucien's silver eyes locked onto Olivia's with terrifying certainty. Every enemy of the crown learned your name. Then the glass behind them exploded inward.